Joining me on the show is Nick Dunn. Nick was one of the Chennai six British men who were imprisoned for 4 years in India. But the catch was, there was no crime. They weren't falsely accused, they were simply in the wrong place at the wrong time, and as a result, went through what only can be described as a tragic miscarriage of justice. Nick joins me to share his story of how he survived 4 years of hell.
Your life has just been taken away from you. People say murder of another human being is the worst thing you can do to another human. No, and not in my eyes. It's taking an innocent man's freedom away. That is, in my eyes, the worst thing you can do.
I don't know enough about you, but I do.
Welcome to the Schofield Stories podcast, unmasking masculinity and mental health. Join me, Callum Schofield, as I work to strike the stigma surrounding men suffering from mental health. Every episode, a new inspiring guest will share his story, and this episode is no different. Welcome to the Schofield Stories. Let's get started. Thank you for being here and welcome to the show, Nick.
Yeah, thank you for inviting me. It's a honour, true honour.
Honestly, the honour is all mine. And now you're here to talk about a pretty bizarre experience that happened to you while serving as a paratrooper. But before we get into that, why don't you give a bit of a background about yourself and why you decided to join the army, and particularly the parachute regiment?
I think back when I was growing up, as a kid, with your friends, you're going down the woods and you're building camps and you're finding branches which kind of is shaped like a weapon. And we played armies, and I was always wanting to join the army as a small kid. And I remember ram raiding my mum's makeup and using her dark colours and using it as cam cream on my face. And so basically I just looked like a weird looking child running around covered in mud and makeup. And then just seeing war films, watching them, and it kind of got me, as I got older, more so wanting to join the army. I wanted to be a part of something. I wanted to wear a elaborate uniform and hopefully do my time for Queen and country. And I wanted to join an elite regiment. I wanted to prove myself. I wanted to, as you say, be the best. So I did a bit of research and I found out the parachute regiment was a very fitting role for me, especially yesterday was the birthday, 22nd of June, 1940, when the Parachute Regiment, Airborne Forces, was born during the Second World War. And the stuff they did in World War II, Arnhem is one of the big factors, the Falklands, Northern Ireland, and obviously in modern day Iraq and Afghanistan. And they truly are an amazing outfit, and to be part of such an elaborate brotherhood, an airborne brotherhood, it's just an amazing feeling. And I enjoyed my time. I served there for 6 years, and I did operations in Northern Ireland, Afghanistan and Iraq.
And being a para, when you're away on tours, that puts an extra price on your head, so to speak.
Yeah, because the operations that we do is not like your normal conventional infantry operations. And I'm not degrading the other infantry units at all. What they do and what everyone does plays a big part in the operation sides, and we all have a job to do at the end of the day. But the parachute regiment do certain jobs that requires an elite regiment, elite outfit to do these jobs, and I've been on them jobs, and I was very proud to be part of the parachute regiment and being able to go on these operations and seeing things from a different perspective to what, say, another regiment gets to see, especially with working with special forces that I had the pleasure of doing. That just tells it in one word that you are elite. Simple as that.
Yeah, absolutely. How hard was it to get into the parachute regiment? Because that's a whole new level of training from what I'm aware of.
Yeah, the parachute regiment has a very physical, robust, mentally demanding training schedule that young paratroopers get to experience at Catterick. When they get to a certain part of their training, they will go on P company, and it's a test of physical endurance, robustness, and basically it's making your mental state stronger. And if you're and every exercise you do, there's always a story behind that. And I won't go off them all, but you've got a big, it's a pass or fail. And if you fail the trinasium, that's it. You can't be a paratrooper. It's basically 60 foot high. So if you can't do a big kid's playground at 60 foot, how are you expecting to jump out of an aeroplane? And then you've got milling, which is 1 minute, which is the longest minute of your life. And you are literally punching the hell out of each other. Not like in a boxing way, just constant like that. And that's to simulate you getting more rounds down than the enemy. And all the other tests in P company are very hard, very enduring in physical and mental capacity. You have to want it to pass it. You can't just turn up and just plod along, because you will get a fail for doing that. You've got to show eagerness, you've got to show drive, you've got to show determination to succeed, to be the best. Hence why the parachute regiment is one of the best, if not the best regiments out there.
It absolutely is. And all this training is training you for arguably the worst case scenario. Then in 2013, you experienced what was beyond the worst case scenario.
Yes. So I spent 6 years in the army, in the parachute regiment, going to Northern Ireland, Afghanistan and Iraq. And I went from the military into the private sector, like doing close protection work, or in my case, I did armed security on merchant vessels. So all these ships that are bringing goods from one country to the next, including bringing stuff into the UK, when they're in a certain place in the world, there is very bad people who want to hijack these vessels and hold them up for ransom. And these are very poor, desperate people. They're not terrorists. They're just people starving, and the real terrorists is forcing them to do the dirty work. Some are successful, some are not. No hijack has been ever successfully been completed when there's been armed guards on board these vessels. And I was doing armed vessel security for these merchant ships, and in 2013 I was on board my company's support vessel, and we basically needed fuel and provisions, and the next morning on the 12th of October 2013, it was the beginning of a 4-year nightmare.
And when you say nightmare, I think it's fair to say that's probably an understatement from what you went through. And it's important to add that everything you was doing, it wasn't like a dodgy bit on the side. This was actually an established company and you were doing a professional job.
Yes, we were doing a professional job. We were professional security officers. We had our certificates to back our training up. There's nothing that we didn't have that put us far away from a criminal as could be. But we were portrayed as criminals. We had done something wrong. We, in the Indians' eyes, were up to something no good, which was so far from the truth, because all we were wanting was fuel and provisions and to be on our way. And it didn't help that there was a cyclone at the time, and we were kind of under maritime law, which you can do in one of those situations, is seek refuge to a neighbouring country. And that's what we did. But there was more to it than met the eye. Basically, as time went by, we found out more information. But at the time when it all began, we were very left in the dark and weren't aware of what was really happening. But if I was to be very blunt, we were set up and we were made out to be the fallout guys, the guys to be made an example of for 2 Italian Marines working for their government, doing the same job as us, who in 2012 wrongly killed 2 Indian fishermen. So we paid the price of their actions, so to speak.
So would you say that you were in the wrong place at the wrong time? They were waiting for someone who matched your description, your crew's description. So when you came in to seek refuge, it was the perfect person. Yeah,
they were waiting. If it wasn't going to happen to us, it probably would have happened to another bunch of security guards with another company. Someone was going to be made an example of, regardless. We could have just getting our fuel and provisions and be on our way. They had the perfect opportunity to strike, seize, and grab, and that is exactly what they done. It was a seizure exercise, well done in their eyes.
So what did actually happen? What was the events that unfolded which led you to losing 4 years of your life?
Their stupidity, basically. They dragged it out when they shouldn't have. When we were at the port between the 12th of October and 18th of October, there was different companies from different organisations from around India, and they were going through all the paperwork, checking the weapons and the equipment, making sure everything was certified and correct, and everyone was going, yeah, there's nothing to be had here, everything's in order, blah de blah, blah de blah. And then the local boys turned around and went, we're not going to look like a bunch of mugs here, we're going to nail these. So they just turned around and went, oh, we found the weapons and they're illegal. How can you find something when you've been shown something? But that's how they did it. And to put the nail in the coffin, they didn't even say, we're going to arrest you on suspicion of entering Indian waters and illegal weapons. They just said, you're going to the hospital for a medical checkup. And we're like, oh, so why can't I take my belt? Why can't someone take his reading glasses? Why can't I take my wallet? Why can't I take my mobile phone? What kind of hospital are we supposed to be going to? We're not stupid. We knew exactly what they were doing. They were just making out that we were stupid.
So where did they actually take you? As I'm assuming it wasn't a hospital check.
Well, we didn't go to the hospital. We went to the court. We went straight to the police station. We had no one from the company. Our agent didn't even was able to access us to be a translator for us. We had no one from the company representing us. We had no one from the British Embassy there. We were getting screamed and shouted at for hours. We weren't fed. We were given very little water. And we're in this cramped up little room in the prison and in the police station, sorry. And it was absolutely disgusting. It was just, sign this or we'll ruin your life. I'm like, but it's a blank piece of paper. What am I supposed to be signing? If that doesn't start and make you think, I don't know what is. We are in a different country and it's going horribly wrong as the seconds go by, and we can't do a damn thing about it.
When all this was unfolding in the police station and in this cell, did you ever think that it would escalate further, that you would be actually moved to a prison in India and it would reach sort of an even worse state?
Yes and no. It's probably the same procedure, and really in our country, they put you in a remand prison. But the first ever prison that we went to was built by, and I'm going to say it because of the current climate, it was built up by slaves. It was built when British rule over India happened. It was built by slaves. So when they found out 6 British guys were coming to this prison, they were nearly doing backflips and they were saying, the shoe's on the other foot now. English boy, white boy, all this. They were very nasty. You just felt scared, especially at that prison where you look at it from the outside and you're going, if it looks bad, this bad on the outside, what on earth is it going to look like on the inside? Thankfully, we were only there a couple of days before getting transferred to the remand prison in Chennai. So we went from Palamkoti prison to Chennai prison, and spent like nearly 6 months there. So it was still a bad prison, but nothing could have basically set you up for what was to come. You didn't know what was on the horizon.
How did you cope with that, not knowing what was going to happen next? That must have taken its toll on you, especially your mental state.
Being in a life where you're able to control your own actions, your own life, your freedom, what to do, and have all that stripped of you, and the more so is that they're not knowing what's happening. It can be pretty damn scary. I don't care how big, how tough you are. I cried for my mum, and then they would do the exact same, because your life has just been taken away from you. And people say murder of another human being is the worst thing you can do to another human. No, not in my eyes. It's taking an innocent man's freedom away. That is, in my eyes, the worst thing you can do.
Did that make it worse because you were completely innocent? You see false imprisonments and different things like that, but you were completely innocent, just purely doing a job.
It was hard at times. Like I say, a lot of those times there was the not knowing what's happening from one thing to the next. It was very tedious at times. The days felt like weeks, the weeks felt like months, and so on and so on. And lack of communication from the outside world, it just felt like we were just left. And we could only feel some sort of positivity when the embassy came to visit us, where we would receive letters from our families, and you could see the anger and hurt in the letters from your family, because you're 5,000 miles away, you've committed no crime, you're locked away in a sweltering heat country, in a prison where you're having to constantly battle every day just to eat sometimes. And you've got to take control of your own mental state as well, and to not let your anger emotions get the better of you. But you can't let your sadness get the better of you as well, because you'll sink into a form of depression. And so you've got to kind of have a bit of happy medium more than anything. You've got to take a bad situation and try and make it out that it's not as bad. But that's not for you to just deny anything bad that's happening. It's just to keep your mental state in a positive way.
Yeah, you mentioned there about your family, and I know your sister was one of the key figures campaigning back home for your release.
Yes. She was just absolutely fantastic. It was actually the media that got in touch, because obviously once we got arrested, the local media, because every main media like your BBC or your ITV, they have their little delegates around the world and all that, and obviously it was ITV's local boys that basically got wind of what happened to us, and then they passed it on to our local Tyne Tees News. And well, when my sister's ranting and raving in a diplomatic way, she's not really hard to find. So hence why the media got involved. And my sister said, I am apprehensive in talking to the media, because we do know the media can put their spiel on things and not say exactly what you're saying. However, all the media was very supportive of me and my family. They never once wrote false lies. It was all positive. Yes, okay, you do get the odd exaggeration on things, but that's how the media editors are. You can't not get the full truth in tabloids. It's never going to happen. But my sister led a campaign She spearheaded that campaign to fight for justice, not just my justice, but justice for everyone. And it gained a lot of momentum, a lot of support. Yes, it didn't go as big as it should have been. I blame that because a southerner wasn't in part of it. We're all northern, including one Scottish guy. So it didn't really hit as where it needed to be, but it still made an impact. It made that big of an impact to where you have foreign ministers come to visit in your prison. That's how big it was. And you do look back and you think, well, it was big, but could have been bigger. And then you look on the other side and you think, well, it clearly was big because people around the world are writing to us. How are they finding out these stuff? So I've got people from Australia, Canada, America writing to me in prison. So it was big. It's just it was very political. And that's the problem that we faced. We were political pawns.
So because of the political nature of everything, do you think that slowed things down? People had to be more careful and tread carefully around the whole scenario?
Oh, yes, definitely. The way the British government acted. The problem with my experience with Indians, if you start screaming and shouting in their face, they just dig their head in the sand. And you'll get tired and go away. They don't listen. They don't take heed. And I don't think our government was making enough noise. They said that we can only do so much. That's part and parcel, but we're innocent. There's been no crime committed. Therefore, shouldn't you really fight for someone who is innocent than someone who, okay, has done something wrong, but is in the same position as you, i.e. in a prison abroad? There's a difference. You need to draw the line. And I do think the government should reevaluate on prisoner UK nationals abroad in prisons. They should basically do a lot of digging to find out if this person or persons are as innocent as they seem to be. The government's stance at the beginning was very apprehensive, I believe, and it wasn't until we were convicted, I think that's when the governments opened their eyes and realised, well, the weapons that they said were illegal, funny enough, all accreditation came from BIS, which is a UK government department. So make your own judgment on that.
And of course, doing all this, you were still the only Westerners in a prison full of Indians. And you can tell me if it's true or not, but I read somewhere that you were set up by a group of inmates whilst visiting the prison doctor and a brawl broke out or something along those lines.
Yeah, I'm never gonna lie about it. I kind of let my emotions get the better of me, and I started a confrontation in the hospital when visiting the doctor, and I went back to my so I was walking back from the doctor's cooling down, spoke to a couple of the guys in the compound, told them what happened, and they came as a bit of backup, just so I can go to the doctor to apologise for my rash behaviour, and hopefully I can get an apology from him, because he was screaming and shouting at me, and I'm not going to stand for someone screaming and shouting at me for no reason. And all hell broke loose. There was crutches flying, tables flying, chairs flying nearly. It was just pandemonium. There was a big scrap going on. Luckily, no one was seriously injured, but that kind of enforced the prison superintendent to enforce a lockdown. So when people have been really struggling in the current climate with our lockdown, I was in a 3-month compound lockdown. So if there was no guards to escort us, we couldn't leave. And it was very mentally draining. I was very fawned upon by the other guys. They all blamed me, and rightly so. I did instigate it. I made matters worse. I was flavour of the month or months. However, things in life don't last forever, and it did end, but it kind of could have ended in a more peaceful way, but I won't discuss that because it's not my way of discussing what happens to other guys. This is my story. I will not talk about what the other guys, how they went on in prison, how I saw, whether they did right or wrong. I talk about myself, how I coped, etc., etc., and then there's no comeback on myself or spouting shite, basically.
Yeah, that's completely understandable. And you mentioned there about coping. Did you have any day-to-day coping mechanisms or anything you did to try and pass the hours or even keep yourself busy?
I read a lot of books. I did a lot of crosswords, word searches. I coloured in pictures. I did extreme dot to dots. We built our own Flintstone gym where we went around the prison and found flagstones and ripped them out of the ground and used whatever we could muster and chisel a hole and then get a branch and put it through and bed sheets and create some weights. And like I say, they're on my social media, these pictures of the prison, because my sister sent me a spy pen, and once my book came out, I felt it was nothing but right to release these pictures, just to show people this is what the prison I was in.
Yeah, as I've seen online a few of the pictures from the prison, and you have an image in your head of what you expect things to look like. But what particularly struck me was the food and the way that was presented in these images.
Yeah, but obviously we were a big group of guys and we all split ourselves down, and the British cooked their own food, and we would get 2 kilogram worth of potatoes, onions, carrots, green beans, tomatoes, cabbage if you wanted it, lady fingers, whatever the correct name is, and sometimes we'll get like pieces of chicken neck and wings. But then obviously because of our diet of being in India's eyes of pissy week, we need meat. They're predominantly mainly vegetarians in India, and that's probably why I think they're pissy weak as well, because you do require a protein source, and our protein source is predominantly meat. So we did get chicken pieces, 1 chicken piece a day, not the biggest, wasn't a chicken breast. For anyone who wants to say, oh, I heard you were eating chicken breast and steak, that's a UK prison, mate. So you'll get like a chicken thigh or a chicken leg, and sometimes we would either cook it as it was or try and take as much meat off the bone and try and bulk it out. And most of the meals were that we made, mind, we're not chefs. We did create a variety of different meals, because you try eating a stew every day, you're going to get sick. And we called our stew, because we just threw everything in it, we called it Big Bob's Bastard Stew. Just something to just put a bit of light on things and give you a bit of a joke and a laugh. And sometimes, like, you just eat the food, and you'd surprise yourself on how actually tasty it was. And that came in the form of people sending parcels with condiments to make the food taste nicer. Because you try eating a bland stew, I think you could stomach it the once before rushing into the kitchen and pouring a lot of tomato sauce and pepper over it.
Yeah.
But yeah, like sometimes you eat that food for fuel. Sometimes you just you know it tastes nice, is as nice as it can be. But it was just going with emotions, getting it, having energy. Like at the end of the day, you got to put petrol in your car. We've got to put food and water in us. We're a machine just like the car. So, and if you don't eat enough food and drink enough water, you're going to slip down a slippery slope. You're going to be very rash. You're going to be ratty, aggressive, and you're going to sink into depression, and you're going to feel sorry for yourself. And in that situation, that's the last thing you want to be doing. However, I will admit there was days where I did feel like that. And that's just because as the days went by, the weeks went by, the months went by, you miss your family. You miss your way of life.
Was there a time during when you actually thought, are you going to get out of this? Because, when you said the days and the months went by, was there ever any set of thoughts thinking, am I going to be stuck here?
No. In the whole 4 years, 1 month that I was in India, yes, I'd still be in prison today, serving the remainder of my sentence. I always said to my family, I will walk out this prison if it took 5 years or less with my head held high and my pride. And that's what I would have done.
Yeah,
I knew there was
very
an end
important.
game. I knew there was an end game. It's just how quick that end game could be. I never dwelt. I accepted. And the problem with a lot of guys, they couldn't accept. And rightly so. Everyone's got different ways of dealing with things. But I dealt with is I've been sentenced to 5 years. If I do 5 years, great. At least I can say I've done 5 years in a prison. Obviously, it's not great. It shouldn't have happened in the first place. I shouldn't have been convicted. I was an innocent man wrongly convicted. But when I mean great is I'm not doing longer than 5 years. It could have easily been longer. But to do less than me sentence, but overall it was 4 years, that's a blessing in its own right, because you've beaten them at their game.
Yeah, and that must have been almost key for you to have that mental resilience and know that there is an end game. As without that, as you said, it would have easily been a slippery slope for you.
Definitely.
So when did things start to actually change with regards to leaving the prison and sort of getting your life back? How did something actually happen? Was there a particular moment that got your case back up in front? Or?
Well, we went through our appeal stage in prison to overturn the 5-year prison sentence. And it had to start at the bottom and then go high. And our case came to an abrupt stop in the High Court. And it took nearly 1 year to get a decision. That's 1 year of nothing. Stuck in limbo. People who are supposed to be well-respected people, i.e. judges, unwillingly making a decision. because whatever decision they make will set us free eventually. So for them to counter that, they just didn't do a decision. Now, answer this question. Would that ever happen in a UK court? No.
No.
The amount of times they turned around and went, well, we mirror a UK court system. From about 100 years ago, mate. And it took the captain of our vessel, who had bone cancer. So he was practically dying. He looked like a bunch of bones walking around that prison. He was, and I hope, and I'm not a nasty person, okay, I do believe he could have handled the situation better at the beginning, and it might have changed our fortunes. However, I don't think it would have. But you never know, because it's never going to happen. Never dwell on the past. Take from the past and turn it into a positive. That's the only thing you can do. And we put another case in so he could go to a private hospital and die and have his family from the Ukraine come out to see him. So that was going through the courts while we're stuck at High Court. It's been in High Court, and his case went up to Supreme Court in New Delhi. And it was quite funny. But the grandest judge of all of India, Mr. Chief Justice himself, heard the captain's case. And obviously I can't quote exactly what he says, but the feedback that we got from the lawyers was he didn't care about his health. He just went, why are you still in my country? To which our lawyers jumped on that and went, well, Your Honour, they are still waiting on a decision in the High Court and have been for nearly 1 year. And the judge found this absolutely disgusting. And he went, and he wrote something. He went, I want you to give that to the court. I want a decision to be made within 2 weeks. And we, once hearing that news, we went, as we did out for every court date when it could potentially change our way of life, we always went, it's on like Donkey Kong. And you could see the camp, the spirits, the morale rise. Still apprehensive, but people started feeling a bit happier. We're now, after nearly 1 year, we're moving. We only had to wait a week, and we got our decision, and we called it Judgment Day. And the night before, on a Sunday night, the radio was playing rock ballads. And I know this sounds cheesy, and people probably think, shut up, Nick, you're taking the piss. Well, the song, The Final Countdown, came on. And I stood up in our cell and I went, listen, lads, it's over. It's over tomorrow. It's over. And a few of them went, oh, well, we'll just see what happens. I understand where they're coming from. But I was positive. So none of us, as you can imagine, slept that night.
No, I bet.
Because the next day was Judgment Day. So we said, well, we'll wait till lunchtime and we'll ring the lawyer to see and find out what's happening in the courts. So it was a long, anxious wait, to say the least.
I bet it was. I was about to say I can imagine, but the truth is I can't. I have no idea what it must have felt like. So what was the response when you got through to the lawyer?
I didn't personally speak to her. The couple of the other guys used the prison telephones, which could you can only ring internal calls. Like in India, so I couldn't like use them phones to call my family. So we rung the lawyer and find out what was happening in court. She said, nothing yet. Nothing. There was about 40 odd cases before they got to hear us. We were the final case to be heard. Sod's law, eh?
Was that on purpose? Was that a purposeful thing that you were? Did you happen to do that the last case, or did someone make sure your case was the last one? Do you think?
Oh, it was to make sure we were the final case to be heard. Definitely. Yeah. Cause more anxious misery. And I was training outside in my homemade gym, which was literally behind our compound, our prison cell. And I've never, ever, from that day to now, heard a guy with two emotions try and mutter words to me. And I'm busy training, and I got Dunny at the window, where the barred window. I went, oh, what's the crack? He went, case quitted. I went, what? He went, that's it, it's over. And I was just jumping around going, see, I told you. But to be told that the case was acquitted, I thought, oh yeah, that's great. It's not like I'm going to get out of prison today, is it? Like, we just had to go off what happened, bail. We had to wait 10 days before getting bail, but getting released on bail, there's a lot more stuff that needs to be done to actually getting released. So between bail and getting released can take some days, sometimes weeks. But I tried to carry on training and I couldn't. It felt like someone had just squeezed my heart and just let go of it. It was beating like 10 men. My body was perspiring, not just because of the heat. I was sweating because my body was just so anxious, so nervous. 4 years is coming to an end. And I went back into the cell and everyone's like seeing people with fire in their bellies, seeing a smile on people's faces. It was just unbelievable. So as you can imagine, no one slept that night. So there's 2 nights of not sleeping. And then the next day, once the prison was open, I had to open that. I said, I nearly pushed the guard out of the way, man. I had to go and train. I had to tire myself out. I was knackered. And I'm training, and I saw one of the guys going out to the compound, and I called him over. I said, what's up? He says, oh, I've been summoned to the superintendent's. I was like, all right, okay. And then I was doing some training, and I was walking around, and then I caught him coming back in. I went, oh, what's the crack then? He says, get your shit together. The embassy's coming at 11 o'clock. I went, what? He went, embassy's coming 11 o'clock. And I tell you what, you'd think someone had just took my knees away. I had jelly legs. I felt sick, but in a good way. I just couldn't believe what I'd been told. Yesterday, I'd just been told we've won our appeal. The next day, I'm leaving prison. Emotions were going on. I can't even describe the word, but they were going berserk, if I was to use a lesser word. It was just amazing, unbelievable. And going back into that cell and seeing everyone just running around packing stuff, and I was just thinking, I'm not rushing here, because obviously we had an incident back in the first prison when they said, oh, you're going to get bail, and we all went down there and then we weren't getting released. So I was just thinking, you know what, I'm not rushing, I'll do things in my own time. For starters, I need to have a wash. I'm sweaty. I've been training. But yeah, we all got down there for about 11 o'clock, and the embassy were there waiting, and it was the best feeling ever.
So it was as quick as that, then you were away from it all, really. Is it fair to say that that was the end, or was there any more turns along the way?
I had to spend a couple of days in India where we had to do paperwork. We had to wait for the official paperwork to be wrote up, and then we had to go through the rigmarole of getting our exit permits, which was the Indian government's way of having the final last dig out with, so they delayed things and said that computer servers had gone down and people were getting agitated and all that. And I was just thinking, we're going home, man. You're not in prison. So what if it takes nearly 12 hours just to get a bloody stamp in your passport? I do not care. Nothing is stopping me from leaving this country. But it took its time. My sister flew out to see us. Then she left before me. And I kind of chose a different flight. And then I showed all the flight to the embassy. And the embassy went, you're leaving tonight, not tomorrow. I was like, what do you mean? Everyone's leaving the night. Basically, we're kind of giving a polite F off.
Yeah.
So it was an absolute amazing. It was amazing feeling of 1 minute being in prison, wondering how long am I going to be in here, to then winning your appeal, to getting out of prison, to being on a plane, to coming home. Like, things happen. People say it did take long. It was evenly quick on certain things as well. But it's still 4 years of my life that I've lost. And being an innocent man and having your freedom stripped from you is the worst thing I believe a human can do to another human.
Does that still have an impact on you from what you went through?
I'm not going to lie. I've had my moments since coming home. Obviously, I've got my whole military background, and I've got 4 years of constant mental torture. I am human. I have emotions. Obviously, nowadays my emotions are a bit mucked up at the minute. I can get really upset and emotional a lot easier than what I used to do, and that's just because I appreciate things. I appreciate freedom and I appreciate life, and when I see bad things happening in the world, I just feel like, why is this happening? And I do believe people should do more extensive work into finding the perpetrators of any crime. Don't just chuck people in prison just because you believe they may have committed a crime. And we were wrongfully arrested and convicted and lost 4 years of our lives. And I'm not going to lie, it has had an effect. And I've gone from one extreme to the other. 2 different cultures, 2 different ways of lives, a lot to catch up on. And it's been hard at times, and I just have to deal with it the best way possible. And I've overcome adversity, and I will continue to overcome any challenges that I may face in the time in years to come.
Has the experience changed your views, your outlooks on anything in particular?
The only thing that it hasn't changed is my sense of humour. I've still got my sense of humour. And my friends all said that. They might have taken away a lot of your stuff in life, but they've never taken away your personality and your sense of humour. But I think I appreciate things in life more.
Yeah.
The stuff we all take for granted, I basically appreciate them a lot more. And I think that the views I have on life now compared to before my whole prison experience, certain times I have to bite my own lip because I know you can't say as much as you used to because people get offended too much nowadays. But my views on life is never give in life. Always basically try and do the best you can do. Don't focus too much on what someone else is doing when they're in their life. Focus on your life. Try and better yourself. I believe that you never know what's around the corner in life. You never know. 1 minute you could be living the high life, next minute you could be like in an Indian prison like myself. I was doing a job that I enjoyed. I was earning decent wage. I believe, making a difference in the shipping community. And then next minute I was thrown in an Indian prison for a crime I didn't commit. So, yeah, I believe that when you go to that the edge of the path and you need to cross the road, instead of looking left and right just the once, look more than once, because you just never know. A speeding car might come straight around the corner and hit you. Always take precautions in life. Life is an amazing thing, and you only have one of that. I'm quite jealous of a cat. They say they have 9 lives. We only, unfortunately, have one. It's what we do with it that makes a difference. And if after what has happened in these 4 years, has it made me a better person? I believe so. I believe it's made me a different person. I'm still me to those who know me, but my outlook on life is slightly different compared to back in, say, 2013, before all this nightmare happened. But the most important thing that I can take away from it is to appreciate life in general.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a cracking message. The point that I really wanted to almost end on was, how did it feel? Can you put into words when you returned home, when you were reunited with your family, particularly your sister and mother?
Well, the videos of me coming home to Newcastle Airport is on the internet for anyone to see, and you can make your own judgment on time for me. 5 days before Christmas 2013, while I was in prison, my mum suffered a double aneurysm. The last ever phone call I've been able to have with her was telling her I was getting arrested off the ship, and I don't know when I'll next see her again. My mum came on leaps and bounds, but her voice, her speech will never be the same. And that is like a mental demon I have to deal with for the rest of my life. And people say I should never beat myself up about it, but 1 minute I had a conversation telling my mum I'm going to prison, and I'll never know when I'll see her, speak to her again, to exactly that. I'll never have a normal conversation with her ever again. And it breaks my heart. It takes me time to realise things, that my mum still is here, and it's a blessing in its own disguise. She showed the grit, drive and determination to see me again. And she gave me her strength to keep fighting. And my sister, seeing both of them and the rest of me friends and family at home when I came to Newcastle Airport, was just the best feeling ever. It was like winning the lottery 10 times over. Money couldn't have bought that. That was true family love. And everyone who stopped what they were doing and were watching me on Facebook Live as I was coming back, thank you so much for your amazing support, because I could never have done this and survived the 4 years of hell on my own. I needed help, even if it came in the form of someone signing a petition. They did their bit. And yeah, I really thank everyone's amazing support.
That is honestly inspiring, and I can't thank you enough for coming on the show and sharing your story. So, Twen, why don't you just quickly talk about your book, Surviving Hell? Where can I, personally, where will I be able to find it first, and then where can my listeners find it afterwards?
I did the book because obviously people want to know the story. Too many people were saying, Nick, you've got an amazing story. You should write your memoirs down, etc., etc. People were interested. People knew the media could only say so much. They wanted to know what really happened in 4 years. So I finally got round to doing a book, and it's published. It's been out since March the 26th this year. People can buy it from Amazon. You can now go into Waterstones now after the recent restrictions been lifted and buy it from Waterstones. You might have the opportunity to buy from eBay, other third-party outlets online, but Amazon seems to be the main place to buy my book, Surviving Hell. And everyone who buys my book, thank you so much for supporting me. And when you buy it, it would be great if you can leave a review on Amazon. It really helps me, and basically goes to show that, like, in any adversity you go in life, you can overcome it. And I overcome 4 years of hell, and I never gave up. I showed drive and determination. I basically stuck my fingers up to them and said, you'll never beat me. You may beat me down mentally, but you'll never break my pride and spirit. And people in this lockdown can kind of relate to how my lockdown was, and hopefully their lockdown, they realise it's not that bad. They have a hell of a lot more to their disposal than what I had. And I don't like people when they refer to their home as a prison. It's definitely not a prison. It's a safe haven. And everyone who's bought my book have gave me some fantastic feedback, and it's had them gripped from the first page, basically. And it's a real life story, and there's no exaggeration. There's no, oh, well, this, there's that. It's just raw truth of a modern day miscarriage of justice.
I personally can't wait to read it. I think it's the perfect place to end the episode. Well, thank you again for coming on, sharing this with me.
No problem.
And my listeners. As you know, it's been my honour to have you on the show. And have you got any last words?
I'd just like to say thank you for everyone's amazing support over the 4 years and continued support. Hopefully once all this lockdown measures has been finally relaxed and we can go back to a normal way of life, if you want to call it as normal. Hopefully I'll be doing some book signing events, some personal events, and hopefully some guest speaking events as well, and touch up on mental health, how I cope with my mental health, how I currently cope with mental health. And most importantly, I would like to say, I hope everyone's staying active mentally and positive during this whole pandemic. I know it's been tough and very frustrating, and my heart goes out to those who suffer mental health. If you need any advice or how to try and cope with anything difficult in life, I'm always available on social media, whether it be Twitter, Instagram or Facebook, and I will answer any questions. I'm not a guru or anything like that. I'm just using my personal experiences, and hopefully people can take what I went through and implement it in their life, and hopefully they can basically use it to get through all the hardship and hopefully the life tests and difficulties that may be going on in their life, and come out a better, stronger, more positive person.
Absolutely, and that is again an incredible message. Well, thank you one last time for being here.
No
Thank
problem.
You, Nick.
Thank you very much for your invite. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Schofield Stories podcast. Without you, my incredible listeners, I wouldn't be able to do what I do. So I hope you know how much your support means to me. We're on a mission to strike the stigma and unmask masculinity and mental health. And just by tuning in and sharing this podcast, you are playing a key part. Schofield Stories, as always, is proud to support Stop Holding Back, a personal development charity for people who stepped out, a charity and a cause very close to my heart. Finally, if you want more, you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and the official Schofield Stories website, thescofieldstories.com. That's all from me today. I hope you really enjoyed this episode, and I can't wait to speak to you again soon. I've been Callum Schofield. You've been listening to the Schofield Stories. Bye for now.
Jealous cause I'm so close to this. I shuffle away from it. I don't make a fuss with people I hate. Sometimes I have to find the GPS so I can reroute. I gotta be in prison before I'm able to break out.